Between 2018 and 2020, dozens of Walmart stores across the US closed, coinciding with a surge in tariffs on imported goods. These closures weren't just business decisions, they were the result of global trade policies rippling down to local communities. Tariffs on thousands of products, especially from China, put direct financial pressure on Walmart, threatening its low-cost model. As we explore the link between tariffs and store closures, we'll see how decisions in Washington can empty out Main Street, affecting workers, families, and entire towns. Understanding this story is key to grasping how trade wars reshape the lives of everyday Americans. A tariff is a tax on imports, and it's one of the oldest tools in the economic playbook. Governments use tariffs to influence the flow of goods across borders, shaping what products are available and at what price. When a country imposes a tariff, it's essentially raising the cost of bringing foreign-made goods into its market. This can have a ripple effect throughout the economy, touching everything from the price tags in your local store to the jobs available in domestic factories. The main goal of a tariff is to make foreign goods more expensive, giving an advantage to domestic industries. By increasing the price of imports, tariffs encourage consumers to buy locally made products, which in theory helps protect and create jobs at home. But the story doesn't end there. Tariffs can also lead to higher prices for consumers, and sometimes they spark retaliation from other countries. The Trump administration's tariffs, especially those targeting Chinese goods, were a high-profile attempt to bring manufacturing back to the US. The idea was to make imported goods less attractive, so companies would invest in American factories and workers. However, the reality was far more complicated. Many US businesses relied on global supply chains, and sudden changes in trade policy created uncertainty and confusion. When tariffs hit, importers like Walmart faced a tough decision. Should they absorb the extra cost themselves or pass it on to shoppers in the form of higher prices? For a retailer built on the promise of low prices, either choice came with significant risks. Absorbing the cost could eat into already thin profit margins, while raising prices might drive customers away to competitors. For Walmart, whose brand is synonymous with affordability, maintaining low prices is crucial. If prices rise, even slightly, it can change the shopping habits of millions of customers. On the other hand, if Walmart tries to keep prices low by absorbing the tariffs, it risks losing money on every sale, especially in a highly competitive retail environment. The tariffs didn't just affect a handful of luxury items, they covered a huge range of everyday products, from electronics and toys to backpacks and kitchenware. These are the core items that fill Walmart's shelves and drive its business. As costs rose, the impact was felt not just by the company, but by families across the country who depend on affordable goods. The situation became even more challenging as other countries responded with their own tariffs, targeting American exports. This tit-for-tat escalation, often called a trade war, created a climate of uncertainty. Retailers like Walmart had to constantly adjust their strategies, making it difficult to plan for the future or invest in new growth. This economic instability squeezed profit margins and made it tough for Walmart to keep struggling stores open. In some cases, stores that were already on the edge found it impossible to survive the added pressure, leading to closures and job losses in local communities. In the end, tariffs didn't just target foreign competitors, they disrupted the entire retail ecosystem. From supply chains and store shelves to the wallets of everyday Americans, the effects of these economic levers were felt far and wide, reminding us that in a global economy, every action has a reaction. Walmart's business thrives on efficiency. For decades, the company has built its reputation on delivering everyday low prices, made possible by a finely tuned supply chain and relentless focus on cutting costs at every step. From massive distribution centers to streamlined logistics, every detail is designed to keep shelves stocked and prices down. But when tariffs were introduced, this delicate balance was suddenly disrupted. Tariffs are essentially taxes on imported goods, and for a retailer like Walmart, which sources a significant portion of its inventory from overseas, these new costs hit hard and fast. Overnight, a large chunk of Walmart's inventory was hit with these new taxes, causing costs to spike. Items that had always been affordable for families now carried higher price tags, and the impact was felt both in the aisles and at the checkout counter. Walmart scrambled to respond. The company tried to negotiate better deals with suppliers, and even looked to shift production to countries like Vietnam and Mexico to avoid the tariffs. But these changes take time and money, and the global supply chain doesn't pivot overnight. Absorbing the tariffs meant Walmart's profits took a direct hit. On the other hand, passing those extra costs onto shoppers risked driving away the very customers who rely on Walmart's low prices. It was a lose-lose situation, and the pressure was felt at every level of the company. Even a small increase in prices can make a big difference for budget-conscious families. Many shoppers started comparing prices at other stores, or simply decided to buy less, putting even more strain on Walmart's bottom line. The result? Financial pressure began to mount, especially on stores that were already struggling to turn a profit. In communities where every dollar counts, even a slight dip in sales could tip the scales. In this tough environment, locations that were barely profitable before the tariffs quickly became prime candidates for closure. Rural and small-town stores in particular faced an uncertain future as foot traffic declined and costs rose. Tariffs didn't just raise prices, they forced Walmart to rethink its entire store network. Executives had to make difficult decisions about which locations to keep open and which to shutter, reshaping the retail landscape across the country. The squeeze on margins made these tough decisions inevitable. For Walmart, tariffs weren't just a line item on a balance sheet, they were a turning point that changed the way the company does business, and the effects are still being felt today. Walmart's supply chain is a global machine, with China at its heart. Every day, thousands of products make their way from factories across the world, converging in massive distribution centers before reaching store shelves in the United States. This intricate network relies on precise timing, efficient logistics, and strong international partnerships to keep costs low and shelves stocked. But when tariffs were introduced, this carefully balanced system was thrown into chaos. Suddenly, the cost of importing goods from China skyrocketed, and Walmart was forced to scramble for new suppliers and alternative shipping routes. Logistics teams worked around the clock, rerouting containers, renegotiating contracts, and trying to minimize disruptions. The uncertainty rippled through every link in the chain, from overseas ports to local delivery trucks. Shifting production out of China was neither simple nor cheap. Factories in Southeast Asia and other regions had to ramp up quickly, often lacking the scale or expertise of their Chinese counterparts. This transition led to production delays, inconsistent product quality, and higher costs at every stage. For Walmart, these challenges meant paying more for goods, waiting longer for shipments, and facing tough decisions about which products to prioritize. These global challenges soon hit home in U.S. stores. Shoppers encountered empty shelves where everyday items once sat, and employees struggled to keep up with unpredictable inventory. Rising expenses squeezed profit margins, making it harder for each location to meet its financial targets. The impact was felt not just in big cities but in small towns across America. Every Walmart store is judged on its own profits, so when costs rise and sales drop, marginal stores quickly fall into the red. For locations already operating on thin margins, even a small increase in expenses could mean the difference between staying open and shutting down. The unpredictability of the trade war made long-term planning nearly impossible. Executives faced shifting deadlines, changing regulations, and constant uncertainty about what the next month might bring. Strategic decisions that once took years to plan now had to be made in weeks, often with incomplete information. For stores in struggling communities, this extra pressure was often the final straw. In towns already hit hard by economic downturns, the loss of a Walmart store meant fewer jobs, less access to affordable goods, and a blow to the local economy that could take years to recover from. What started as a global policy debate in distant capitals ended with very real consequences for local families. Headlines about tariffs and trade wars translated into shuttered storefronts and lost livelihoods in communities across the country. The fallout was felt most in places least able to absorb the shock. For many rural and small-town Americans, the closure of their local Walmart was more than just an inconvenience, it was a turning point, marking the end of an era and the beginning of new challenges for their communities. Walmart's closures during the trade war weren't random. They hit hardest in small towns and rural areas. These communities rely on Walmart for jobs and affordable goods, and are most sensitive to price increases. Mapping the closures shows clusters in the Midwest and South, where margins were already thin. When tariffs raised costs, stores in these areas couldn't pass them on to customers, making them unsustainable. The timing of closures closely tracked the rollout of tariffs, suggesting a direct link. In tough times, more stores slipped below the line of viability. The result, a strategic retreat from the most vulnerable communities. Tariffs didn't just hurt profits, they changed the retail map of America. When a Walmart closes, hundreds lose their jobs, often with little warning. In small towns, these jobs are hard to replace, leaving families facing sudden financial crises. Many workers struggle to find new employment with similar pay or benefits. The loss isn't just economic, it's social. Co-workers lose their community and routines are upended. Promises of retraining or new manufacturing jobs rarely materialize for retail workers. Skills don't always transfer, and relocation isn't an option for most. The pain of closure is immediate and concentrated, while any potential benefits from trade policy remain distant. For many, the store's closure marks the end of stability and opportunity. Walmart is often the anchor of a local economy, drawing customers to nearby businesses. When it closes, foot traffic vanishes, hurting gas stations, diners, and small shops. The empty building becomes a symbol of decline, discouraging new investment. Local governments lose a major taxpayer, straining budgets for schools and services. In food deserts, the loss of Walmart means less access to fresh food and medicine. Residents may have to travel far for basics, or settle for unhealthy options. The closure's impact ripples through every part of the community. It's not just a business decision, it's a blow to the town's future. Tariffs weren't the only reason for Walmart's closures. E-commerce, shifting demographics, and new competitors all played a role. Online shopping, led by Amazon, has changed how Americans buy everything. Some stores struggled as local economies declined or new discount chains moved in. Walmart's own strategy shifted, investing more in online sales and fewer physical stores. But tariffs acted as an accelerant, pushing already vulnerable stores over the edge. The sudden spike in costs was a stress test many couldn't survive. Store closures were the result of multiple pressures converging at once. For many locations, tariffs were the tipping point that sealed their fate. The Walmart closures during the trade war revealed the real-world impact of protectionist policies. Tariffs meant to help American industry instead raised costs for retailers and consumers. The financial strain forced Walmart to close stores, especially in communities least able to cope. Job losses and economic decline followed, showing how national policy decisions can devastate local economies. The story highlights the fragile links between global trade, corporate strategy, and everyday life. As we debate the future of American economic policy, we must ask, how do we protect workers and communities without causing unintended harm? The true cost of a trade war is measured not just in dollars, but in the lives and towns left behind.